Hey, I hope everybody can hear me. So a lot of people have been asking for me to make an epoxy video. As you can see here on the spinner, I have a glitter tumbler that I finished putting glitter on. So the way to prep the tumbler for the epoxy to make it look like this is what I do. I take Mod Podge. In this case, I'm using a glitter Mod Podge just to, I don't know, make the effect a lot better. So I do 2 coats of glitter, which is on here right now. So you do your Mod Podge, your glitter, let that dry for an hour. Then you do another coat of Mod Podge and glitter and let that dry for an hour. I didn't do that last night. I just let it set overnight. So I'm doing the epoxy today. So now we're going to get ready to do our first coat of epoxy. So I just bought the epoxy from Michael's. So it's Envirotex Light. So there's 2 parts, parts A and part B. And then I just have these 2 little cups. So you're gonna put equal parts in each cup. And then obviously gloves, because I use my hands to spread it, and then popsicle sticks for stirring. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put some epoxy. And you don't need very much, because when you do equal parts, obviously you're gonna get a bigger amount mixing the 2 together. And then I just kind of like eye it just to make sure it's pretty even. Some people like measure it. I don't do that, maybe because I'm lazy, but as long as it's equal, then you're good. So then I'm just gonna stir part A. You're gonna stir it, and you will see some air bubbles that develop, but you'll be okay because I'll show you guys how to kind of get rid of the air bubbles. So I'm just gonna stir this for a couple of minutes. Probably not even that. It says like 2 to 3 minutes for everything to cure properly, but I've never had like an issue. As long as you stir it really well, you should be fine. I'm sorry if you guys hear the baby in the background. He is finding his voice. So just gonna keep stirring. You guys can, I don't know if you guys can see, there is air bubbles. And then I've heard some people do like to warm up their epoxy. So some people will set their epoxy in like warm water just to kind of warm it up. I haven't really like looked into it for the reason why they do that. Obviously it's probably a benefit. I just haven't really looked into it, but the method that I've been using, I haven't had any issues, as you guys can tell from the Selena tumbler that I did. So this tumbler that I'm working on right now is for a customer of mine. She wants a Jason Momoa tumbler, so I'm pretty excited to see how this is going to turn out. Alright, so I think this is stirred pretty well, so you're just gonna, it doesn't matter what to what because it's all going in the same place, so you're just going to dump one of the parts into everything, and then you want to make sure you scrape really good, because if it's not even, it can like mess up the formula, and then your epoxy is not going to work properly. Alright, so once I have combined those together, I'm just going to mix the 2 again. And I don't know if you guys can see, it's kind of cloudy, but it will dry clear. So as you guys can see, the spinner is currently spinning. This is a spinner I got from Michael's. It basically goes straight, and then it spins also at an angle. As you can see, it'll start moving down a little bit, like right now. So that way the epoxy is distributed evenly, and then I can speed it up to go faster, or I can go really slow. And so when I apply the epoxy, I put it on the slow setting, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So right now, I'm just gonna stop it for a second to get this first layer going. I just pour some on there and spread it over and just make sure it's applied evenly. You guys can probably see the bottom of the cup. I'm probably gonna do another layer of glitter on there, but I'm gonna turn on the spinner again and just pour and keep spreading until it is covered. And sometimes I stop and I go, and as I'm putting it on, eventually it's a excuse me, a self-leveling epoxy, so you should be good. Excuse me. And then I'll show you guys what to do if air bubbles develop. Some people get a torch, some people just use lighter or some kind of flame to get rid of it. I just use a grill lighter because it has a long end, and it's easier to use than your standard like cigarette lighter. So literally I'm just gonna keep spreading it. Inside the tumbler, I do have it taped off at the top so none of the epoxy gets inside the tumbler, just for safety reasons, obviously. And there goes my stick, but I don't need that now, so. Let's see. And there's probably people that apply epoxy differently, and some people use a brush. I just personally find this easier. That way I can feel how the epoxy is being applied. So I'm gonna also put some on the bottom here. And it's gonna drip off, like that's a given. So no worries there, as long as you apply it evenly and make sure everything is coated, and that way you don't have any rough spots, you should be good. Because when you apply it with the glove, you can feel if there's still rough areas or not. So basically you just keep applying until your product is used up. I just make enough for what I'm doing because epoxy is actually expensive. So I only use what I need. And you'll see it kind of going down, and so just make sure. I like to put a thicker coat of epoxy on just because I feel like it'll be more protected that way. So when you guys do apply your vinyl, if you guys end up doing this, it'll be a nice smooth application. And then once you apply your vinyl, then you'll put another coat on top. That way you know everything underneath is not going to come off. Because I know a lot of people have had issues just doing tumblers without epoxy, and even with the permanent vinyl, it's coming off. So that's another reason why I use this method, because it makes sure that everything is sealed and it's waterproof, so you don't have any concerns or anything with your vinyl peeling off or getting ruined. So I'm just gonna kind of let that spin. Epoxy takes several hours to dry. It takes about 72 hours to fully cure. So I let this dry overnight before I apply my vinyl decal, and then I do that second layer of epoxy. But that's pretty much it. And then I'll show you guys real quick about the air bubbles, because I can see some starting to develop. So let me just put this down, take these gloves off. And it's really, honestly, like super easy to get rid of the air bubbles. So give me 1 second. So here I just use a lighter, and I just kind of look, and where I see air bubbles developing, I just kind of go over it and make sure I get rid of them, because once it dries, you'll be able to see those air bubbles. So just kind of graze it back and forth. I probably should invest in like a heat gun or a torch of some sort, but I just haven't yet. So I see one over here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this method. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Super easy. I know epoxy can be really intimidating, but once you get the hang of it and kind of learn how the epoxy works, then it's great. I know my first cup was a nightmare, so it just takes some patience. And now my lighter's not working, but you guys get the gist. So that's pretty much it.